Well, this morning we're headed to Portland, Oregon to visit my friend Booster Steve, as he's affectionately known. I'm deciding to do a video because we're getting some returns, warranty on boosters, and whenever there's a warranty on one of Booster Steve's work, I know something went south. And what we're finding, and what Steve's going to show us today, is the pitfalls of installing your booster wrong and how you can damage it. So we're going to take up about 100 old boosters today, and he's going to walk us through some diagnosis to see if your booster's actually bad and can you actually fix minor problems yourself, and just some ins and outs, things that I don't know. So this is a learning experience for me too. So we're going to go visit one of the most knowledgeable, if not the most knowledgeable, classic car booster rebuilder in the world this morning. Okay, we're in Southeast Portland here with Booster Steve, also known as Dread Pirate Steve. He took over Booster Dewey's business here a few years ago, but you worked with Dewey for how many years? What year did you start?
I started here in 92.
92?
Yeah, so 27 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
I brought my first booster to Dewey back in high school, so I've been 86 or 7, and I started bringing him 5 and 10 at a time, starting in 89, 90, and then. Yeah. So that's really when I got rolling. Okay. And it's been fun to see you guys progress. And
yeah.
I have been touting you guys as the foremost leading authorities on classic car boosters in the world.
Oh, I appreciate that.
And there's probably only this many of you, and you probably all know each other real well.
Do, yeah.
So classic car boosters, what ones don't you do from pre-70 whatever?
We started about late 50s with the Chryslers and go up, and we do everything from Ferraris to Chryslers to Fords to,
so there's not many that you say, oh, we don't know what that is.
Yeah, right,
you're going to have to take it somewhere else. If it's a power brake booster.
Weird Volvos.
And at the high end, you say, what year do you stop at?
90.
90.
Yeah.
You'll have to bump that up one of these days.
We will, yeah. And we probably can do newer than 90, but that's just where Dewey stopped, and I'm sure we can get parts for him and do them. We just haven't crossed that bridge
So
yet.
What's the holy grail of core boosters?
Ooh. Boss 429.
Oh, yeah.
Those are very rare. We just got a couple of them in stock. And the Hemi-Car boosters.
Oh, okay.
That's
what's that, $1,000 core?
$1,000 core.
$1,000 core.
Yeah.
Oh, think how many of those were thrown away.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that one's bad.
Yep. Yeah. And the Boss 429s, people would pull the engines out, scrap the cars.
Wow.
Yeah, so a lot of those are gone.
Okay. Well, I want to talk about my boosters, and I deal with just 67 to 73, and so that's the Midland Ross. Who's Ross? Who's Midland?
I don't know who Ross is. Midland's still around.
Yeah.
But, Midland, they made radios. They did all kinds of...
And the way I explain it to customers when they wonder which one they have, Midlands have a band Midway in them.
Oh, that's good.
There you go.
I like that.
And Bendixes are crimped.
They're crimped,
yeah. So we have 3 versions we work with. 67 to early 69 is Midland.
Yep.
And then the rest of 69 and 70, Bendix of the roundish
right.
volleyball style,
7.5
inch, and then we got what I call the pancake Bendix. What do you call that one? In the
11-inch Bendix.
71 to 73, and those seem to be more dependable.
Oh, they're fantastic.
Yeah, so we don't
better design, and they will last for
and
years.
What kills them is bad master cylinders contaminating.
Yep.
So
that takes out most boosters.
That's right there.
Yeah, master
so
cylinder.
If ever you have to add fluid to your master cylinder, stop the bus. You need a different master cylinder because you're that close from ruining your booster. And when you got 4 teaspoons of brake fluid in your booster, what do? How do you get it out?
You don't.
Do you put some Dawn in? You take the booster off and put some Dawn in water and shake it and dip it out?
Theoretically, you might be able to dump some of it out.
Yeah.
But once it gets, you have 20 inches of vacuum sucking on it, and that fluid just gets sucked right into the control valve.
To the whole thing.
Gets everywhere.
So yeah, master cylinders.
Yeah, very important.
You want clean fluid up at the top, and you never should be adding any. If you are, your booster is on the way out.
Yeah.
So even if it works today, give it a few months or a year, it's gone.
Within a year.
Yeah.
And a lot of guys will call and say, I don't see fluid anywhere, but I keep adding it. It's like, well, it's going right into it.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
So, okay, so what should we start on first? You want to talk about Midlands first?
Sure, that's a good...
Okay. Well, let's start off with, how do you know your Midland's bad? Well, do you hear a hissing? Is your pedal just sucked to the floor? I mean, what's going on?
This is a bad one.
Oh, this is apocalyptic.
Yeah,
apocalyptic bad.
It's beyond.
So how do these guys get broke?
This one had been submerged, and either somebody took it off, left it in the trunk, and the trunk filled with water, or if it was just somewhere. And you can see the Bakelite, all the plastic inside, will absorb moisture. So when it absorbs moisture, it expands and breaks. And then, rust and what have you. But you're right, you'll hear hissing. Sometimes you'll hear hissing when it's just sitting there, running.
Right.
Or when you press on the brake pedal, you'll hear it hiss. And you'll press on the brake pedal and the engine will run rough. And it'll be a hard pedal.
And sometimes the car will just put you through the windshield because that pedal just takes off.
Yeah, and that is a very specific problem with Midlands. And they get inside their control valve, when they get contaminated with fluid, it'll, instead of being a gradual feel, it's on or off.
Wow.
So you'll touch the brake pedal, it'll
Wham.
slam into the floor. Yeah.
So from what I understand, the Bendix is a better design that will last longer.
Yes.
So when I sell a disc brake conversion to a customer, and he wants to save money and he wants the best quality, I sell him a 1970-ish system for his 67 or 8.
Right.
That way he's got the bigger spindles, he's got the better booster.
Yeah.
How many years do you generally get out of a Midland? Maybe 10?
Yeah, you can get 10.
Yeah.
I've had them in my cars the last 10 years.
Yeah.
The benefit of the Midland over the Bendix is the Midlands create more power.
You mean ease of stopping.
Yeah.
So if you're a petite little lady,
right,
and you don't have a real strong leg, and you want the most power, the Midland is going to stop you faster.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah,
okay.
But like I said, the Bendixes will last twice as long. And the main reason, we can go into that.
Yeah.
The front of the Midland is just open, so when your master cylinder's on there, fluid just goes directly into it. Where on a Bendix, they have a divot here, and there's a seal, so fluid will drip down. It still gets sucked in. Yeah. But not as much.
Okay.
And so on the Midland, it hardly takes any leak for the fluid just to get sucked right into it.
Cool. Yeah. Okay.
So.
All right. Your average guy doesn't even want to rebuild a booster. In fact, you're the only guy on the planet that has these on the shelf.
We
this
do.
Bakelite.
We've had those Bakelite parts reproduced.
Yeah.
And
so
we actually sell them to other rebuilders.
Right. So in what case would your average guy want to attempt to maybe service his booster or fix it? I mean, what's the symptom that says, I think maybe I ought to try myself before I send it to Dawn?
That's a good question. And you can, if the bellows here has a rip, which just could be a leak under static application, it's just a clamp. You can pull that off, put that on pretty easy.
And those are available on my website.
Yeah, and they're reasonable.
Yeah.
So, and with the Midland, you take the band off, it comes apart easy.
Yeah.
So you can replace these. The seal on the back, which fits into the back of the shell, goes back here. You can replace those once it's apart pretty easily.
And do you hear a hissing if that seal is bad?
Do, yes.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, and you'll hear it inside.
And when
the
you
car.
replace that seal in the back there, do you put a little navel jelly on there?
What do you put? It's a silicone-based grease. So white, it's like a dielectric
grease
that you use in a distributor.
Okay.
So,
And there's and maybe you got a little brake fluid in there. You noticed your master cylinder was bad. Maybe your average guy could open it up and clean out his Midland and get some more life out of it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Where a Bendix you can't because they're crimped together.
You can't because they're crimped and there's a big spring in them.
Yeah. Those are.
But yeah, and you can see if the fluid has gotten in here, and you could theoretically replace all that. And
okay, when a core comes in to you or me, what do you look at first? I mean, what's going to cost the customer more money, or you look the other way? Like these, if that's broken, is that included in a basic rebuild?
No, basic rebuild just includes all the rubber parts and none of the hard parts, like none of the shells, the plastic, the Bakelite plastic. There's actually 3 pieces, and this is the center plate that slides in there. Everything slides around that. If anything metal or plastic is broken or damaged, it's going to be extra.
Yeah, this one here, this case is just a throwaway.
It's got a hole in it.
Yeah.
If somebody was really good at TIG welding, they could probably, but the metal's so thin now, to try to wire feed weld, you'd probably just make that hole bigger.
Yeah, and you don't have a large supply of these cores lying around, do you?
They're getting harder and harder to find.
It's important to not give away your core. Some people make the mistake of buying a one-size-fits-all type of weird booster from who knows auto parts store and handing them their precious original core, which is now worth quite a bit of money.
Yeah.
So make sure not to let go of your original cores too easily. Shipping. I always say, hey, this rod's got to be, and this rod usually stays in place, but if you yank on it hard enough, it will come out.
Yep, indeed.
Now, can your average homeowner put that rod back in?
Theoretically, but the clip that goes on it
gets destroyed. And how do you get it back out of there once it's destroyed?
And you can't get the clip out very easily without taking the entire thing apart.
So
you could do it if you're really tricky with some dental tools, maybe.
Sometimes. Because sometimes it gets jammed in there.
Right.
Yeah. So that's a maybe.
Yeah.
So you want both rods, the one that goes here, the one that goes here, and you want to see this protected
and
in
to
a
protect
package.
that, cardboard tube or
Right.
piece of PCV.
Yeah. And a lot of people don't know what UPS stands for. It's United Parcel Smashers. So I tell my customers, okay, you got it boxed up good, it's ready to come back at me, and they're like, yeah. I say, okay, go out in your driveway and just throw it in the air as high as you can and see what happens. And they're like, no, it'll break. I'm like, oh, you haven't wrapped
then you
it
haven't
right.
back.
Because if we go on YouTube and look at some hidden camera stuff, we'll see just that happening. And if you put fragile on there, I think that makes it worse.
I think it makes it worse. I think they kick it harder. Yeah.
So what about, you got an extra booster or two? I know in my store I always say send it along. Once it gets here, we'll give you a wholesale rate for it. And for a guy that just has an old booster laying around, and it doesn't even have to be to your Mustang or Cougar.
No, not at all.
I mean, if you got an old Ferrari booster laying around, throw it in the box. We'll give you $20 for it. No, we treat customers fair, and sometimes we surprise them on what their stuff is worth.
Oh yeah.
And sometimes we disappoint them and say, well, the good news is I can give you about what it costs to ship it.
Right.
Okay.
But at least it's being saved. That's the way I see it. Is even if just a few bucks and the shipping.
Yeah.
It's not getting in the scrapyard. It's somebody else can use it.
Old car guys, that's important to them too. They'll hold on to some piece of crap for 40 years going, I don't even care if you throw it away, but I can't throw it away.
Right.
Here you go.
Yeah. And car guys, I mean, we're car guys. We want to see these cars out on the road and people fixing them up.
Right.
Otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah. Okay, teach us about check valves and hoses and proper hoses and links and fasteners. What can we learn?
Great question. This is a Midland check valve, and a lot of people call and want to say, is my check valve bad? Very easy. Blow through it. Blows one way. Doesn't blow the other way. That's it. If it blows both ways, it's bad. But these are so simple, little flap inside, they rarely go bad.
I've seen them where they're just so old that the plastic deteriorates.
Right, yeah, they'll crack and they'll leak, But yeah, it's got to be baked, and been in the car for 20 years. But the grommet will fail before the check valve usually, because it dries out and will crack around there, and then the check valve will move inside and it'll leak around that.
I've told people, I don't even know if my booster works or holds pressure or not. And one thing I've told them to do, an easy check, is, Oh, your car's been parked for a week? Go out and unplug the hose from the intake, see what happens.
Right.
Shouldn't a car that's been parked a week, a month, 2 months, you still should hear whoosh?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, so even a year.
Yeah.
They shouldn't leak down.
We found NOS boosters that we've gotten in, pulled the check valves out. Who knows how long they've been sitting?
Oh.
And you'll hear vacuum.
So that proves from the factory they bench tested them
correct. Yeah.
before they went out the
Yeah.
door.
Yeah.
Oh, I did not know
Yeah.
that. And you bench test everyone
do.
before it goes out the
Yep,
door.
every booster that leaves, we have a test bench for vacuum, for static, and under application to see if it loses. They all use vacuum, but they should only use a couple inches of vacuum and not
You should get like 3 pedal
three
depressions
good pedal depressions.
before you're out of power assist, right? Okay. Anything else you want to teach us about hoses?
Well, hoses can definitely be a problem. This is an original hose, and it's pretty solid. This thing will crack if it's bent, you know, and if your engine's torquing, that can crack and cause problems.
Well, also, it's hard to get a good seal on the nipple.
Correct, yes.
If it's as rock hard. This clamp is not doing much.
No.
Right.
And so this is a correct 11/32 actual vacuum hose. A lot of guys use 3/8 fuel line.
And what happens when the engine gets warm? The engine gets warm, and they're like, why aren't my brakes working as well? Well, when it gets warm, this collapses because the vacuum sucks it in. So fuel hose is not what you use.
It's for fuel hoses for pressure going out, and vacuum hose pressure going in. So and 11/32 is the correct size. And you guys probably carry this.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's a great and inexpensive. Plus, it looks a lot better when you have a new hose on there, and you know. John here is pressing. We put our own diaphragms on our plates, and use the press to press them together. And there was a company doing them for us, but the company, the machine broke, and they just stopped doing them.
Okay.
So one of the other guys here worked with a machine shop to build us these jigs, and it works great. Presses uses a couple tons of pressure to squeeze them together, and
another reason why rebuilding your own booster is rather difficult.
it is, yeah. For one time, you know, buy all the equipment to do it and the specialty tools, and
right.
it can add up. But
okay, nothing more on hoses and check valves.
no.
Okay, for 69 and 70, here's 3 examples of the boosters I commonly see roll in. I call this a fake booster. This looks like a Bendix, but this is a made in China look-alike. And if you send this in for a core and expect to get an original Bendix booster back, that doesn't work out so well. The good news is we can give you partial credit because some of the parts interchange, like this backing plate, this rod, some internal parts, but these aren't the real deal. Inside, the rubber is just not great quality, so that in a box power disc brake conversion you bought and you thought since you paid a little more you'd get a good booster, well, you got a little better booster than some of them. But these, I often see these where they look like they've only been on the car for months. I mean, this looks like brand new and it's failed. So if you send it in, we'll still be able to give you partial credit. This is the one most guys want. It says Bendix right on it. Notice this identifying mark right here. See how different that looks right there from this one or this one? Now this, tell us what this one is, Steve.
Well, this one, there's a company years ago made these up, and they took like a Pinto, booster, or the Mustang 2, but yeah, it doesn't have, you can see where the old check valve was over here on the top, and they welded that up and moved it over here. It doesn't have the bottom pad with the part number. And then they just took a bracket and welded it on, and then welded the studs.
And
so
sometimes
fits.
they're bolted on.
Sometimes they are bolted on.
Yeah.
This, and so from just a casual look, you pop your hood. And
looks correct.
It looks pretty correct.
Yeah.
And
but
for a driver quality car,
right.
It's probably good.
And when I sell one of my power disc brake conversions, that's usually what you're going to get right here. Internally, they're all the same, and that's really a real deal Bendix booster.
It's a real Bendix booster.
Yeah.
Quality parts, They work great. They last for years.
But what happened is the cores started drying up years ago, and your rebuilders didn't want to say, that's it, we don't offer anymore. So they went out and started putting a bounty on Mustang 2 and Pinto boosters, or a Econoline van, who knows.
Right, yeah,
and
they
said,
work too.
We'll make something that works. We'll modify it. And they did a good job. So we sell this as an economy booster with a much lower core charge. But you're getting the same quality whether you get economy or I call this my premium booster.
Yeah.
Right. Another thing is we do core matching. So you send me in a booster that looks like this, where a little surface rust here and there, maybe a little pitting here, but you can still clearly read the Bendix back. I try to send you back the same exact thing. You send me one, so you get one of my, say you pay your core charge, and you get one of these in the mail, but then send me one that looks like it came off the bottom of the ocean. I'm sorry, that case is basically ruined, and we can only give you partial credit on that booster. I don't know if you do the same thing here in your shop. You don't have a whole bunch of cores to choose from.
We don't, no. And most of the stuff we do, people send in from their, their Eliminator or their GT, and they really want that one done.
Right. Okay, I want to go through some of the pitfalls of installation. What I'm finding is, in the day, your average mechanic would do one a day of these boosters, in the 80s and the 70s or whatever. Well, now, you hand a booster like this to your mechanic, it might be the first one he's ever done. And he might be applying his knowledge of modern cars to this classic car, and then I will get a call, or you will get a call, saying, the booster I bought from you is bad, my mechanic says. What went wrong, Steve?
Well, a few things could go wrong, and it's possible that something's shipping, something broke. That is always
But that's pretty rare, because you wrap them
good. It's pretty rare because we package the what out of them.
And you bench test every one with this little pedal.
Every one of them,
and you got a vacuum machine that creates vacuum. So when they leave here,
they are 100%.
Yeah. Right. So tell us what goes wrong.
Well, one thing, this happens a lot with guys that have adjusted the rods. We adjust all the rods with the Ford tool. It's .998, I believe, is the setting. So just under an inch. And this one is adjusted where it should be. This one is, what is that, about a quarter of an inch further?
Eighth, anyway.
Eighth inch, yeah. So when the master cylinder is on this, it's already applied the master cylinder.
And what symptoms is that going to give you?
And so that's going to, as you drive, it's going to continually lock your calipers till they just don't move. It won't let the master cylinder release the pressure. And so then you're caught with, oh, my car's just, I can't move it. And then they, they'll bleed the lines.
And pumping it makes it worse.
And pumping it makes it worse.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So you'll park your car overnight, and the next morning it might be fine.
Right. And then you drive it to work, and then by the time you get to work, your calipers are heated up.
Well, here's something I see. Sometimes people had a Midland and they find out their 69 should have had a Bendix, so they'll go with it, but they'll put their spacer on here.
Right. No, that's a great.
And then they'll say, well, this ain't working. Then they'll weld something on this rod to make it.
Yeah, it just added, half an inch, and so now this has to travel that much further, and they're feeling that gap between.
No spacer ever on a Bendix.
None.
Always a spacer on a Midland. Talking spacers, make sure this is in place. A lot of the ones you see on eBay don't have this in place. You put this up to your car, everything's off. Your pedal's in the wrong place, nothing's right. And again, don't turn in your core until you know you've got a complete booster, because you turn in your core and then go back 3 days later, your booster's gone, so's that plate. What's another problem that people do? The wrong brake pedal is what I see. So of course you got two different styles here. And if you try putting a 1970 pedal on this, that's going to make this happen, and you're going to ruin seals. You're going to potentially break the Bakelite. 70 had the straight through, 67, 69 had the teardrop.
Yeah, and this is the guts out of a 70, and yeah, if that 70 is mounted on a 69, that's up there like that. Will constant move. You're right. It's going to wear the rear seal prematurely, or it can crack.
Sometimes within the first couple of times you drive it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Now, what about when you're bleeding your brakes? What goes wrong there?
Lots.
Okay, tell us about that.
A lot of guys will think, it's a power brake car. I need the engine running so that my power brakes are working. But that's not the case. You need to have your engine off, no vacuum in the booster,
Always. This is very important. If you get nothing else out of this video, listen to this guy.
Yeah, because when you're making an application and it's going down and it stops, but your pedal, you still have vacuum. 20 inches of vacuum on 7.5. That's 15 inches of surface. It's a lot of force, and it will break the Bakelite plastic. And we get them all the time back with that broken. And I say, well, you bled it with the engine running. I wasn't supposed to. No.
Now, have you reviewed the Ford shop manual installation tips bit by bit, or looked at an NOS box where there's that sheet in there? Is there anything you would add or subtract from Ford's directions?
You know, that, what did they call those sheets? It was the installograph. I love those.
Yeah.
And no, they're pretty clear on how to install them and how to bleed them.
Right.
So
right.
The other thing is when somebody has if they've switched between the two, and they had a Bendix, they buy a Midland, didn't have the spacer plate, and they bolt that thing up. Well, the master cylinder will essentially, instead of just fitting against the metal on the Midland, this seal is what seals the front of the booster. And if the plate's not there, the master cylinder gets tightened down. So your rod is now longer because you don't have the spacer.
Everything goes wrong.
Everything goes wrong. And this master cylinder, since it doesn't have the spacer to seal that, rips this boot. So then you have both problems. You have the problem of the brakes sticking, and then the booster's now leaking because the boot's ripped.
I always want them to have a fresh new filter.
Yes.
I notice a lot of people don't even know a filter goes there, and hardly anybody sells that filter.
Yeah.
So how important is that filter? What happens if a bug gets in there?
It's bug or dust.
Yeah.
You know, it goes, as you can tell, right down the center of that control valve, and if that control valve gets all dusty and dirty, that can cause a booster failure.
And those flimsy little foam filters, they don't last more than a decade.
They don't, no.
I don't know, maybe they only last 5 years.
I would say 5
Whoever
years.
checks their booster filter, that's
Nobody.
not in the maintenance schedule. So,
and they're probably lasting longer now. The material that you sell is different than the original.
Right.
And people aren't driving these cars every day. It's in a garage, it's covered, so they're probably lasting a little longer. So you're probably right, you're probably getting a decade.
And this is for the Midland only. For you Bendix guys, don't worry about it. But there's going to be a lot of people that are running out their car right now going, oh, do I got a filter in there? How can I see up? You can't see up in there because the plastic cover goes right over that. Okay, any other, what's the typical, so we've covered brake pedals, we've covered spacers, we've covered not running your car while you're bleeding the brake. What other installation faux pas hurt these boosters?
It's a great question. The one thing is actually the insulation. When guys, you're trying to fight this thing, getting it through. Notice that stud?
Yep.
That stud on all these Bendixes are broken, and it's guys wrenching up, or they're trying to get, take your master cylinder off first.
Or at least loosen it.
Or at least loosen it.
Right.
But right against that shock tower, and guys are wrenching up on that. We've seen these broken. We've seen them bent, so we always straighten them up. And guys sticking them back in, same thing. They're trying to get that thing in there. Well, you can still break the Bakelite piston back here. You can bend the studs or scrape them up.
So Bakelite is a step above ceramic.
Right.
So just know that you got a very fragile piece here that you yourself are not going to be able to replace if you break it. It's going to have to go back.
Really well.
Right.
But not
pressure.
Right.
No. Okay, so if my booster has got a broken stud here, a bent stud here, a stripped stud here, and I send it in, is that going to hurt me? Or is that part of the service?
It's going to cost extra, but it is all repairable. We can put new studs in, and
so not real expensive to have a stud or two broken.
No.
Okay. No. So I'm not one of these retailers that says I will never give up my source. I want this guy to succeed, and so you get to choose whether you go through West Coast Classic Cougar or you go cut me out of the mix and go with Steve. And let's talk about which one is best for you. Now, if you're buying a master cylinder and some lines and some other parts, it makes sense to buy it through me because shipping will kill you.
Right.
If you want your booster done and only your booster and you're not in a hurry, get in line, because you can't the day they come in isn't when you start
No,
working on
no,
them.
we're
Yeah.
about 3 weeks backed up.
Yeah, so it could
yeah.
be, if it's a week to get it here and a week to get it back and 3 weeks, so it could be sometimes a month and a half
yeah.
before you get your
Easily,
booster
yeah,
back.
yeah.
If you need your booster now and don't even want to send yours in yet, I'm the guy to go to. I can take one off the shelf, overnight it to you. Your mechanic can do the job. You can get it off the rack and get the core back at me. What's another time when you'd want to do it? Oh, I'll tell you a time. If you got a look-alike booster like a Cyclone, a Torino, Ranchero, they look a lot like this, but they got a different rod in there. I don't keep too many of those cores around. You'll probably just want to go direct to this guy. If you got some weird non-Ford boosters and you want in-store credit, I think you ought to go through this guy here, because I'm not going to buy your Ferrari booster.
I will.
Yeah, exactly. I would suggest a digital picture be sent in advance before you even pick up the phone to them. That way you can, intelligently have a conversation about what that might be worth as an in-store credit.
Yeah.
Any more thoughts?
The realistic value of, if it's, junk, or if it's, good enough to give them credit for.
Right. Any other thoughts about when to go through Steve or when to go through West Coast Classic?
Well, what's great
Cougar?
about you is if you're buying like I've done with interior kits and all kinds, you've got some big order together.
Mm-hmm.
Why get it from us?
Right.
Get it with you, get the shipping with everything, and
Right.
great way to do it. So.
Great. Just a question. How many boosters can one guy build in a day, start to finish?
Ooh.
What's your record? In an 8-hour day?
In an 8-hour day, it actually takes quite a bit from start to finish, but we all try to get 3 or 4 done a day, but boy, a record, you could probably do 6 if you're really
If
flying.
they weren't, because some of them are just nasty.
they're horrible.
We got to show the tool.
Got to relieve the crimps on these. So here's our booster wrench.
Now, did you get that from Snap-on?
Yes, it's very authorized Snap-on dealers only. So this I'll show you the one that they originally designed for these, but we wanted more power. So these you just give it a twist. Booster comes apart, nice and easy. This is the official tool.
Where would you find one of those?
That's a good. Kent Moore made these. They no longer make these, but they pop up every now and then.
Really?
But the size difference.
Yeah.
We like more power.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this concludes our interrupting your workday here.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much. I learned some things, and I think this video that we're going to do, I think it'll get tens of thousands of hits, and it'll help your business, and I think it'll take some frustration away from different shops and owners of cars, and getting it done right the first time, getting the right booster, the right pedal, the right installation. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you,
that was
Don.
good.
It's good seeing you again.
All right. Talk to you later.
Yep. I thought they drove so much better than the